Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. I'd like to call our regular meeting of our Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, April 7th. It is 6:31 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I am the chair of our Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here tonight include Paul's not here yet. Andrew's not here yet, but Jeff Kennedy, Kathy Hunter, Aaron Hoffman, and Ben Cherry. We may be joined by Andrew Skolnick and Paul Schatz, depending on their flights and arrival times. We're ably supported, as always, by Chris Sullivan, who's our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. Nice to see all of you. Nice to see all members of the public as well. Our agenda tonight is available on the town website. Tonight, we're going to start with a public hearing on the 67 Pease Road application for a special exception permit for an adult daycare. In new business tonight, we have the receipt of the application for 804 Fountain Street and special exception permits for a site plan to construct a 96-unit multifamily development and a special exception for the exception from the roof requirements. We're also receiving an application for the development of a turf soccer field at 110 Bradley Road, which I will be recusing myself from. Hi, Everson. How are you? In our work session, I'll be recusing myself because my son plays for the Jingo Football Club, which is part of the application, which in just an abundance of caution, it would be best if I recuse myself because of that personal relationship with the applicant. In our work session tonight, we may or may not have a conversation with Derek Isaskowitz. We're not sure if he's coming tonight. And we have additional work in our work session, including discussion of that special exception for the adult daycare at 67 Pease Road. And we have some placeholders on our work session in case we want to, at least on the version I had, discuss the zoning regulation amendments, even though that's
No, I have that on there.
okay, they're on our, we may just be skipping over those because we have.
Oh, yeah, they're just there as placeholders,
They're
just in case somebody wants to read and
Gotcha.
knows that we didn't lose track of them.
So elsewhere in our work session, we may, that we have the amendment to our zoning regulations scheduled for a public hearing at our May meeting. We also have the development at 20 and 23 Lunar Drive scheduled for a public hearing in our May meeting. But there are placeholders currently on our work session. We're also going to perhaps have a brief conversation on the work of our planning towards our plan of conservation and development, talking about timelines, et cetera. If Andrew is here, we may get an update on the South Central Regional Council of Governments, and then Kathy can give us an update on the Housing Committee, and then Chris, anything will cover from your role as the zoning enforcement officer. I know we've also received correspondence, which you all should have received in your package, from including a letter from Ben Carlson of the Conservation Commission in Woodbridge. We have a letter from the Siting Council informing us about a cell tower on Litchfield Turnpike with some upgrades, and a letter from Toll Brothers regarding the release of their bond for their work down on Bradley Road. So now seeing Paul and Andrew have joined us, just so you know, I've just given a general introduction of the lay of the land for our meeting today. Welcome back, Paul. Go UConn.
Let's go. Let's get back.
Alrighty. So first up, we have our public hearing for the application by 67 Pease Road for an adult daycare, submitted by, and apologies for pronunciation, by Lyubov Gitterman. Is there someone here from the applicant who would like to come forward and introduce yourself and present anything you'd like to into our record?
You want me to stay here?
Yes, we need you on the microphone so we can.
And is
Yes, feel free to.
this here?
You can grab that chair if you want.
You can bring the chair over.
Okay, I'll
There's two.
Okay.
So when you're both settled, if you could just introduce yourselves and state your names for the record.
And if you can sign in on the sheet right in front of you. Sign in.
Okay, sorry. So it's down.
Thank you. And just so folks know, we are going to have we've opened our public hearing on this application. We're going to hear from the applicant. The commission members may ask questions of the applicant. Then we will, once the applicant is done with our questions from the commission, we're going to open it up for public comment for those who are interested. And for those who are interested in public comment, you'll have 3 minutes each. You'll come up, sign in, state your name, and offer your public comment. But now we have the applicant, so again, please introduce yourselves and present whatever you'd like about your application.
Hello, my name is Lyubov Gitterman, and I'm the owner of the house 67 Peace Road. I just want to mention that we live in Woodbridge for 23 years, our family, and our kids actually grow up here. They're all disabled, severe autistic, and we try very hard to find an appropriate day program for them, and it's really, we was not successful. We could not find anything. So we decided to create a home program for our kids, to do it ourselves. And for few more Woodbridge residents that have the similar problem, the kids that have hard time to find the appropriate placement. So we bought the house for our kids. Actually, we live on Racebrook Road for all these years, but the house there, it's excellent house, nice neighborhood. By the way, we never have any issue with them. But the problem is that this is colonial, and we look for future. We like Woodbridge, and we would like to our kids stay here. So we found them a nice split ranch with no staircases. We do a lot of renovations. We adapt it to their needs. And the kids are really happy there. We have a lot of support. We have staff that work with them, support staff. We not live there with the husband, not because we don't like our kids, but because we actually, if we are in our late 30s, there wouldn't be a problem. But in May, I will be 67. And I should think about future, the same as my husband. So we think about the moment when our kids stay without us, and we would like to make this transition very smooth. So we bought the house, we make all the renovation. It's beautiful house, and we do everything to adapt it for our kids' needs. And our kids live there happily now. And we have staff, professional staff, very nice people. Before we hire somebody, we always make a criminal record check. We train them. We all through the house, we have a video cameras. We watch them all the time and help them. So it's a very secure thing we did for our kids, and they're really happy. But the problem is that they lock in the house and in the neighborhood, because to provide, we would love to provide a lot of outings to make them a part of community. We have a lot of plans to do, like, help me, I'm nervous.
My name's Lisa Jardin. I'm a consultant working with Luba and her family in regards to creating an adult daycare. We first started with, again, essentially what's going on at her house right now is that she does have individuals working with her 3 children. But our goal, it's all self-directed right now, which means she's responsible for everything in terms of payroll. You know, it's not as stable as an agency would be. So the goal is to create a day program, for one, that it will provide additional security to the staffing, because it's not waivered. Even though it's still a Medicaid waiver, it's funded differently when it's an agency. There's also the ability to provide insurance for the staff, which isn't there now because it's self-directed. There's also, what the goal is that we'd like to develop more relationships within the community so that the adult children have more opportunity to provide opportunities to job try jobs, to get connected to the community, to do volunteer work. My job within the consultation is to develop more community connections. We're only looking to have, right now, Luba's 3 children, but we're only looking to be like 6 total in the adult daycare, because we believe that smaller is better and you can provide better quality. So my role as development is to really make those community connections so that, there's agencies that will, corporate agencies that might have plants and flowers. And we connect with them as an agency to say, well, we'll come in and we'll take care of all those flowers and the watering and the plantings. So to create jobs for the individuals with disabilities. So that's what my role is to develop those type of community connections and get them. And we really want to focus on other Woodbridge residents.
And if I just want to add what I forgot, I was planning to begin from that. First, I really appreciate for the residents who support my application. And for those who are not support, I just would like them to know that maybe it's a wrong impression. We are not interested to expand our business. It's not a business. It's not for profit. All we need to do is to make a stable community, small group. For example, now, to take my kids out, I know that not everybody happy that my boy can be noisy. I know that, but one of the reasons when they want to go out, they usually walk at the side streets. I don't like it the same as the people don't like it. I would like them 9 to 3 day program. We're planning to buy a minivan to put a group of our kids there and take them out for community, for walk, for bowling, for beach, for picnic, to live a decent life. We're not interested to keep them locked in the house and in the streets. And even so, maybe I will answer the questions because I think everybody got the idea. The main thing is that we are focusing on Woodbridge families with the same kids like ours to take 3 more kids for our group. We are not planning to keep them locked in the house or in the neighborhood. We're more focusing on expand their activities in communities, in the social, to make their social life.
Right.
More.
The goal is to help them develop more in the community and develop relationships
And
within
actually
the community.
nothing too much different than what we have now, because when you see in our, like I read in the comments that a lot of cars, yes, all my kids has 1-to-1 service. Let's say change shift. 2 cars in the driveway, people who work in 2 cars come to change, to shift. So 4 cars and my cars. And you can see that's still a lot of space. We have a huge parking lot. Right. So they come and go, yes, that's true. But it's not like a huge day program and 10 car, bring the kids and all this mess. There wouldn't be like that. It's a private, small, and we interested to keep it this way. And actually, kids now live there. And they will continue to live there, doesn't matter what. And people who come to work with them work there, and they will continue to work there. The only question is if you allowed us to make it more structured, more organized, to organize them with outings, with more planning, and then we have more peace of mind. I know that kids are set up with a day program and even 24/7 home support, which they have now. Actually, that's it, I think. I missed something, no?
No, I mean, essentially, there will be no difference than sort of what's there right now.
Absolutely.
Other than trying to make those connections within the community
And make
that
them
will
out,
accept them to come in and have experiences with them. And it's much easier to do as an agency than as an individual. I've been in this disability field for over 30 years now, and I've worked with making a lot of community connections and and when it's one-on-one individual, it's very difficult. When they say, oh, it's a Americash or it's an, IPP, they're willing to say, oh, well, we'll work with you and we'll set up and do that. So that's what my role is to help that happen. And we really want to make sure that we're very person-centered and focused in on the needs of the individuals as well as the community.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Do commission members have any questions of the applicant? We'll start with Paul.
Sure, thanks. So security-wise, is anything going to change if you go from 3 of your own children to, or 3 of your own adult children to 3 more children? Or 3 more adults, sorry.
Security, you mean security in the house? We have liability, definitely. We buy liability insurance, but we have cameras all through the house. What
Well,
what
but-
I mean,
Well, for security purposes, I mean, the house is set very far back from the road. And
So
when,
is there, I don't know the property, is there fencing to keep residents in, to keep outsiders out?
no, there is not fencing to do that.
if necessary, we can put fence. It's not a problem for us. Just tell us that that's what we need to do, and we'll do that. We do everything for our kids.
But security-wise too, there is, I mean, regulation-wise, there's over 30 regulations that are all health and safety focused on that we have to do in order to get licensed and to make that happen. And a big part of that is all, what's the security, how are you making sure people are safe, right down to the water temperature that we have to monitor and pay attention to.
And are there regulations on the number of supervisors to, I don't know, students, participants?
It really depends on their level of need. Like her children all have to have a one-to-one. So that means 1 staff to 1 individual. Again, we're only looking to expand by 3, so it depends on if they have, their level of need says they need a one-to-one, then that's what we'll hire and they'll have a one-to-one staff. If it's a small group, you can have, with a small group, you can have 1 staff to 4 individuals.
But we not do that.
No, but that's the regulation. You can have one, for a small group, you can have 1 individual, 1 staff to 4 individual clients that you support. But again, it depends on their level of need. If they don't need a one-to-one staffing, it may be 2 staff handling. It all depends on each individual's level of need. It's all very personalized.
And are there other models like this in other towns locally that you know of?
In terms of day programs,
Yeah.
there's lots of day programs. I mean,
I'm talking about kind of at someone's house in a suburban neighborhood, residential.
Not that I could say that I know of right offhand. I mean, I know I work for Marrakesh, and we do day programs out of some houses. But it's really, again, it's the individuals that live in that house that need that support, and we go from there, but they're already under the umbrella of Marrakesh. So that, I mean, we have done it in individual homes.
Like an Orange.
Right.
Aaron?
Is the regulations, because I know in a previous conversation we had about group homes, residential group homes, where the individuals who need the support live there, and there are support services. Is that a similar? Obviously, you're not proposing anyone else to live there, but
Right.
is that a similar model in terms of the regulations that are?
For a day program, yes. They're very similar regulations in terms of health and safety and ensuring, that you have the proper amount of space.
Yeah.
You can only have it's 75 square feet per person, of usable space, so yes.
Can
But
I-
it's not a licensed group home.
Can I ask a follow-up on that licensing question? Are you in the process of applying for that license now, or are you waiting to see if you get approved?
Well, we are in the process. You can only apply once a quarter. And April is one of the months, and then I think it's September is the next one. But we were waiting because we wanted to make sure we had town approval. We knew when we first looked into this that the house is in an area that's zoned for an adult daycare. That's why we stepped forward and said, okay, it's already zoned for it. I know it still needed approval, but it was in an area of the town that had been zoned for it. So that's why we were like, oh, let's see if we can get the permission, and then we'll submit it all to the state to get the licensing.
And that licensing process, how long does it take for approval?
The licensing process can take anywhere from 3 months to 3 to 9, even a year sometimes. It's very slow. They have to come out and do all their pre-inspections, and we have to submit all the policies and procedures, which we're in the process of doing. Well, we haven't officially done it yet, but it needs to be done by the end of next week. And that's just the preliminary part. Then they have to come out and ask for more things, see what's happening and what's going on. And we knew town approval would be part of it, so that's why we pursued it.
And a follow-up to Paul's earlier question about a fence and your response that you're willing to put a fence if requested. I want to more ask in terms of best practices for a facility like this, is having a fence. I know our regulations talk about a fence or foliage screen for outdoor apparatus, for adult daycares, child care, and group day homes.
Right.
But is that common? Is a fence a good thing, a bad thing? How should we view a fence?
To be honest with you, again, it depends on the individuals that you're working with. Some, it definitely helps to have a fence because they wander and they may just bolt. But the individuals that her
Not
children do
all.
not do that. And that would be what we would consider with looking at other people. Like, okay, they can't be someone who's going to bolt, because we wouldn't want them to bolt out into the road,
And-
even though it's a long ways away.
And they're always under supervision. They never left alone.
Right.
They have 24/7 supervision.
But in the day program, they would
Except
have it.
me and my husband. I mean staff, 24/7. And they actually have no habit to walk. They grow up here. We never have a fence. We live 23 years in Woodbridge, and we live on North Racebrook Road. That is much more private. We never thought about fence. Our neighbors never put these issues because there was never an issue. They just trained well because we taken good care of them.
You anticipate that these 3 additional adults will require one-to-one staffing as well?
I hope so, yes. That's what we're planning to do. I have in mind a couple Woodbridge residents that have the same kids like ours. And we definitely look for one-to-one. And another thing, my staff is perfectly trained. I have the person who worked for our kids 15 years. I have another family couple that worked for us 7 years. Actually, they practically helped me to grow these kids. And they know all the pluses and minuses, and they never, never say never, but they always able so far to prevent the bad situation before it happened. They're very, Lisa knows them, she pretty often in our house, and I can tell you that we have a excellent staff, and actually everybody welcome to our house to see itself. I can show video, I can show pictures. My kids, even they're autistic, they learn to sew, they learn to cook, they learn to clean up. And when they go outside, yes, my boy can be loud. But this is again happened more after COVID situation, when they was restricted from all the areas and was in isolation, they all regressed. And some of my staff could not come to help us. We have staff shortage and we have very limited outing, and kids regressed. Now we slowly come back on trail, and they are better. So that's another reason why I want to expand it and create a program for them like it's supposed to be. And we try to find the program. Believe me, it wasn't possible because it's 3 of them, and nobody wants to take all 3. And the program that we create, I believe, will be much better, because I believe only small group can provide.
Quality care.
Yes, thanks. When
Other-
I'm nervous.
Yeah, no, thank you. Other questions from commission members?
What is the specific license going to be issued for?
It's through the Department of Developmental Services. They have a whole licensing process that you have to do. It goes through the central office in Hartford initially, and it comes down to the regional people, and they come out and check everything out and look at, we have to submit business plan, we have to submit everything that supports the program. So it is through the Department of Developmental
Is
Services.
that required to run an adult daycare?
For kids with disabilities, yes. I mean, adults with disabilities. We call them kids, but they are adults.
Mentally, they're kids.
And you do need to, I mean, technically, you could do an adult daycare and just go through the Department of Public Health and do an adult daycare license. But again, because these are special needs, you're better going through the Department of Developmental Services because they're much stricter with their regulations than just the Department of Health would be.
Thank you.
So 67 Pease Road, is that owned by a limited liability corporation that will own the daycare, or is that owned by these folks personally?
It's the owner is me and my husband.
So you own the
Yes.
house
Right.
at
Yes.
67 Pease Road? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And then are you setting up a LLC or some kind of company, and then that company gets permitted, right?
Yes, but it's only for part of the house. House is about 4,000 square feet. So we have a lower level, it's not a basement, it's above the basement, it's split ranch. And this lower level, it's a huge space
Yeah,
that we
saw
are
the
planning to,
pictures.
yes.
Yeah.
And also we do a exercise room for the
Yeah.
kids, so.
But I think part of, if I'm understanding you right, you're asking about the Gittermans own the home, but they have developed this LLC
Yeah, business
to take
entity,
over the day
nonprofit,
program, but
yeah.
eventually, because
Not
they're
all.
getting older, you know, they could
Yes.
move the residential piece into that, just so it's covered and taken care of without them being around.
Understood.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, okay, understand.
Who would be the members of this proposed LLC, though? Is Marrakesh involved administratively?
No, Marrakesh is not involved in this at all. It is the Gittermans and myself as the LLC, and with them being the owners of the LLC. And we're just putting this together now. I'm retiring from Marrakesh and I can't just do nothing. So I was like, told her I would help her with setting
And
up a day program.
If you're thinking about future, because we're, like I say, we're retired age, we're thinking about making a trust for these people with disabilities and moving to kids.
Right. We'd be working with like the Plan of Connecticut to help administer this trust and do all that. But it's easier when you have like an agency versus just an individual. And again, it will help provide stability for the staffing as well as additional benefits that they can't get when it's just self-directed through a fiduciary. I can't say that word right tonight.
Sure.
And so the referrals would be coming from the Department of Developmental Services?
Referrals.
Well, we would get referrals from them, but ideally, Luba's reaching out to the people of Woodbridge and working with them first. So we would work with their individual DDS case managers to say they're interested in this program and get their funding swapped over to her program.
Is there a maximum number of individuals that you would sort of a priori cap?
Definitely no more than 6, including my 3 kids.
Right.
Because I believe I saw many times like the people start something and the larger it grow, the worse the service. I do it for my kids, not for profit. And I know that more than 6 kids you just could not provide the quality care. And I prefer kids have 1-to-1. That's the person come on shift, he knows it's his responsibility or her responsibility. That's how it works. And actually, the house very safe, because when I place kids there, my case manager, our case manager, and other people from DDS, they saw that. I invite them, and they was at mine. They check all the safety issues. We do everything
Right.
by the law, by the book.
Even though it was self-determined, when you're doing a residential program with folks with developmental disabilities, DDS still needs to come out and
They-
inspect that you've met certain safety guidelines before they'll put their final stamp on it.
They already inspected the house.
Right.
It's all by the, we change everything by the regulations, locks, windows.
What kind of resources specifically would be made available as a result of this change? Because what I'm trying to understand is how this would be different than just a group of adults with similar needs choosing to
Actually,
congregate?
I can
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
this question. My kids already has funding. For now, the stuff that I have in the house, funding by DDS. And it's two part of the budget. One budget called in-home support, another part of the budget called day support. When we do this piece, day program, the part of the budget that's called day support will go there. We already had.
Right, but in terms of, from a staffing point of view, she's had some very loyal staff. But again, through the FIs, it's very difficult to offer like a medical insurance or health insurance. But when you're an agency, it's much easier to do that. So that's part of the
It's a
reason
group.
why she's looking to do that. 'Cause she wants to be a good employer and
it
she
will-
wants to be able to offer health insurance and
It
things
will be
like
the
that.
same staff that work now, because now staff work 24 hours, 6 hours from that 24 will go to day program. So there wouldn't be a problem. And we do our invest. We're planning with my husband to buy the car on our expenses, out of pockets. To buy the minivan for at least 12 person that we can put staff and clients and make them have a trip to beach, to bowling, to whatever.
Other questions from commission members? Any other questions from our commission members? No? Seeing none, well, thank you both for that
Okay.
presentation. It was very informative and very helpful.
Thank you.
You go back?
Yeah, you can just go back to our seat.
So as we're transitioning to the next part of our public hearing is the public comment portion. And this portion of the public hearing is to listen to your comments. Each of you will have up to 3 minutes to offer your brief statements into the record. I remind applicants that the TPC members and the applicants will not be answering any questions that you raise. Your public statements and the written comments that have been submitted to the town will become part of the public record for the TPC consideration of this application. And I note that we received a number of written comments, and Chris, am I the only one with this?
Just you, and I have one for the file.
Okay, so I should read.
Yes, please.
Yes, I will read into the record the list of comments that we have already received, and all of the commission members should have received in their packets from over the weekend, or there are a couple that were received that are on the desk right now. So we have an email. Our first one is an email dated March 26, 2025 from Rachel Jeffrey and Mike Hansberger. Number 2 is an email dated March 27, 2025 from Monica Phillip. 3 is a typed letter of application dated 3/28/25 from Lubov and Igor Gitterman with an attached site plan and 15 pages of photographs related to the proposed use. 4th, we have a letter entitled Public Comment on Special Exception for 67 Pease Road, stamp received March 31, 2025, signed by Kanoma Anigoro and Ming Hui. Number 5 is a letter dated and received March 31st, 2025 from Bauer Sumpio of 5 Jeremy Garden Lane. Number 6 is a group of letters entitled Public Comment on Special Exception for 67 Pease Road that were stamped received April 1st, 2025. And each of these letters were individually signed by the following people. One from Catherine Pegnataro and Frank Pegnataro of 1230 Johnson Road. One from Yong Kik Cho from 10 Jeremy Garden Lane. One from Paul Ignizio from 54 Pease Road with a note that I have read the letter above and agree with several points made, quote unquote. One from Suzanne and Art Principe of 66 Pease Road. One from Shize Yang and Kiyu Quinn or Shin of 105 Pease Road. One from Simon Huang from 101 Pease Road. One from Sheila and Gil Apicella. One from Shirley Esposito. And one from Ingrid Harrison. We also have an email dated April 1st, 2025 from Suzanne Principe. We also have letters entitled Public Comment on Special Exception for 67 Pease Road, which are date stamped received April 2nd, 2025, and individually signed by first Carl Quist of 62 Pease Road, and then Kathleen Egan. Number 9 is a letter from Betsy and Carl Quist from 62 Pease Road, stamped received April 2nd, 2025. Then we have a letter entitled Public Comment on Special Exception for 67 Pease Road. That was stamped received April 3rd, 2025. It's signed by Barbara Listro. And then finally, we have a letter dated April 7th, 2025 from Jill and Bruce Schaefer of 12 Twinbrook Drive and Emily and David Bannock of 8 Twinbrook Road. So members of the commission, you hopefully have all of those either in front of you right now or in the packet that you received over the weekend. And Chris, most of those are on, have they been scanned or?
Almost all of them, only the last 3, I believe, were not scanned
Thank you.
on the website.
So again, thank you for allowing me to read those into the record. Back to the public comment portion. So those are public comments that we've received in written form, but your opportunity for those who are interested tonight is to come up again and have 3 minutes each for your brief statements into the record. And that brief public oral comment will be combined with the written comment and what we've heard from the applicant today to constitute the public record for our consideration of this application. As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record communications with members of the commission on the merits of this application is prohibited, and I ask those who come forward to give public comments to be brief and focused on our special exception permit and avoid unreasonable repetition. We do want to hear all the concerns that you and your neighbors have. So for folks who would like to give public comment, I invite you to come up. You'll sign in and state your name for your record, and once you've done that housekeeping, I will start our 3-minute time clock.
My name is Art Principe. I'm at 66 Pease Road, right across the street from 67. This is a residential neighborhood. If you make an exception, it will change the dynamics of the neighborhood and discourage prospective buyers looking to buy a home in a residential neighborhood. This could result in me potentially losing thousands of dollars when I go to sell my home. How many prospective buyers would take a pass on buying my home knowing there's an adult daycare across the street? How many other residents in the surrounding area would also be faced with the same problem? Though I'm not a realtor, I know that full disclosure is a law, and that includes anything in the neighborhood that needs to be made aware of. This is a residential neighborhood, and that is why I invested in this area and pay high property taxes for a relatively small home. Whether this is called an adult daycare, a school, or a business, it will have a negative impact on my property value, along with others in the neighborhood. Furthermore, 3 people abutting the property oppose the exception, along with many others on the street and in the area. And that's my comments.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Paul Ignazio, 54 Pease Road. I won't take up much of your time. I applaud them for doing something nice for people with disabilities. I think it's good. It's a nice thing. But the problem for us is, will it change the zoning? In other words, will this open the door for other businesses to come in? and open up shop in a residential area. So I feel for them, and I think it's a nice thing that they want to do. But I feel it's a residential area. It should stay residential. And if this exception was made, would someone else be able to capitalize on that and say, well, you know, you got a business down there, why can't I open up a business over here? And I don't know if that's something that can be done. I don't know the legal ramifications of it, but that's the only thing that came to my mind in that I thought it was strictly residential, the area. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Take your time signing in.
Yeah, I did. Got it.
Thank you. And go ahead and sign in first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I live at the corner of Johnson and
And
Pease
if you
Road.
could introduce yourself, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Catherine Pagnataro, 1230 Johnson Road, Woodbridge. I live at the corner of Johnson and Pease Road, which is just around the corner from the prospective adult daycare. And I want to say that I've had several incidents of high volume of traffic in that area already, and have called the police numerous times about the high school kids that come streaming down that road, never stop at the stop sign right at my corner, and these 3 young adults who have caregivers walk on the street. I can't even walk my dog on that road because it's so dangerous right now with the volume of traffic. These children need caretakers, and I've seen them not work single file, but 3 kids, 2 caregivers side by side on these busy roads. I've seen numerous accidents where vans and trucks have flipped over in Paul Ignazia's front yard. People do not obey those signs. The traffic speed limit there, I think it says that it's 30 miles an hour. They go 45 easily there. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous situation. And I'm concerned too about my property value. I'm a senior citizen, and we've invested in our home, and we're interested in eventually selling it. And we know that having an adult daycare with special needs children, and I have to say, they're lovely, but they are loud, and there are some disruptions, and I am concerned about that. So that's my public comment.
Thank you very much. And thank you for signing in.
Hi, my name is Ming Hui, and I'm on 6 Jeremy Garden Lane, and so we are the house that's right behind 67 Peace Road, and so we have definitely seen an increase in terms of just cars parked in the parking lot, because we don't see the actual traffic because we're on the other side. And on a normal day, we easily see 5 cars parked in the parking lot. And there are definitely times we've seen close to about 10 or so cars parked in the parking lot various times of the day. And so that's consistent with what Kay just mentioned. I can only imagine that causing traffic in the area and causing safety. When the applicant was talking about not being able to find a program for her adult children, and I understand that's the primary reason why she created the program themselves. But what I don't didn't hear from the applicant is whether or not they've tried to find a commercial location to do that. I think the program sounds great for these kids, and I think there is a need for these kids, adult children, to have that kind of a space. Amity Road is designed for commercial activity, and there's alternatives for them. They should try to investigate and evaluate whether there's an opportunity to do that. Or in Orange, I mean, just nearby town, and she already said that she's gonna have a minivan to bring these kids to beaches and places. So if you have that kind of a resources, you should build a program like this in an area that's designed for a program like this and not in our neighborhood. So that's my comment, and we submitted something through email already, so I'm not going to reiterate those things. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And again, thank you for signing in.
I'm Bauer Sumpio. I submitted a long list of questions that I had with regards to this proposal already, so I won't go through with them. I live in Jeremy Garden Lane, and so I kind of abut the property. So, you know, there are a number of questions here, because obviously this is a residential zoning area. Although I did hear a comment by the applicant that this was already zoned for an adult center. And so I didn't quite understand that, if it's already been zoned for this facility, why they need an exception. So I'm not sure that that's true, but you know, that was just a comment based on their applicant. So what's the need? Has anybody done a need assessment? What is the need in Woodbridge for such an adult care program? And you know, thereby, if that's really a need, right? I mean, are we just going to do a stepwise solution to this by having individuals go out on their own to create such a program ad hoc, right? Everybody said it's such an admirable thing that they are proposing. They've learned from the 3 children that they have. But there's a lot of questions here, because it's different than having 3 children with your supervisors, okay? And we haven't even gone to the question of what's the training of these supervisors. I've personally seen them walk around and so forth. I don't know their training, right? They look like great individuals, but where's the training that's going to be had here? I know they're going through a licensing process, but now when they have additional 3 or more or 4 additional participants in this program, right? How are they going to now guarantee that the supervision is going to be adequate, right? To me, it's not clear how that is going to be attained. And even though they have the license, how's the town of Woodbridge? What is the responsibility of the town of Woodbridge to look over this property, right? I mean, are you just going to get complaints that, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, you know, it's too noisy, or they're wandering into our property? So how will the town of Woodbridge oversee this so-called facility? I think there's just sort of a lot of concerns that we have here. Personally, you know, as Ms. Pagnataro has already said, we've seen them walk around the neighborhood. I know it's one way of recreation, since they don't have a van yet. They walk around the neighborhood. You know, they can be loud, and I understand that that's part of the, you know, the autistic feature perhaps, or the issues that the kids have. But sometimes they, you know, they put chairs on my lawn because it's a resting spot, right? To rest, because it's kind of a walk around there. And, you know, that, you know, I understand they got to rest, but it just doesn't seem, my time's up?
You can finish your thought.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem right, okay? So, yes, if they had proper supervision and not simply use this residential area as their recreational area, you know, I think that those are the issues that I'd like to see addressed.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm Lawrence Tillman, and I reside at 14 Jeremy Garden Lane. My concern is, once something like this is licensed, again, what is the control? Because once it becomes more of a business, it almost sounds like they seem to be looking for someone to incur some of the expense of what this is creating. And my concern is, once it's licensed, from that point on, where does it go? And if it becomes an agency that's a big agency and they start sending individuals in because we can't find appropriate help, we can't find appropriate staffing, we start sending people in and we have all kinds of people coming in and out. And I have concerns about that. Right now, as Bauer has alluded to, we have individuals walking up and down and we find them on my lawn periodically. They're loud, which I understand is during the day. It doesn't really bother us that much. But my concern again would be what happens in the future once this is done, and where do we go from there? And how is that going to be controlled? And we know, as far as staffing is concerned, no one can tell us we're going to get great staffing, we're going to get professional staffing, we're going to keep the numbers down, it's never going to exceed more than 3 individuals. So without those guarantees, I feel as though this really shouldn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Joyce Tillman. My husband just spoke. We are at 14 Jeremy Garden Lane. And my concern is, again, the question was posed by Mr. Bow. This has already been approved zoning for for an adult daycare. So I've been in Woodbridge for now 23, almost 24 years, and I've never heard of this zoning. My concern is also, this is a residential, for the amount of taxes we pay, for future, our investment for in the future, we want to downsize and move out too. We do not want that, our property to be on the list of, well, we would go there, we would buy it, but there's daycares, there are businesses there, they're not completely residential. My other question is, there are other organizations out here that do what she says she wants done. So have they looked at Ableist or one of those organizations to see? Even with DDS, there are other areas. If she's only concerned about her 3 children getting to go to the beach and getting maybe involved in some type of work program, or there's volunteerism, there's abundance of other organizations out there that would meet that need. So I'm concerned, again, my husband said they're on our property sometime. I'm afraid they might get hurt, then I'm responsible, I'm liable, I'm looking at litigation. So I do not think that this is the appropriate placement for that type of business. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Frank Pagnataro. I live at 1230 Johnson Road. My question, or my objection is, well, if you allow the zoning for this house, I know for a fact that they tried to buy a house next door. I'm very nervous that if what they plan on doing decides to get bigger, that they add on. And if they add on, it would make it more of a business, a big business with a big parking lot, possibly with a big fence that would have to hold adult people in. Now, that is not what I'm in Woodbridge for. I've lived in Woodbridge practically my whole life. Went through Beecher Road School, the high school. I married, we moved back here. We lived here for over 43 years. We like the town. We like the residential area. The neighbors are great. my heart goes out to the parents for special needs people, whether it be children or adults. I just don't feel that this is the place that we really should be thinking of putting an adult daycare. If you do pass the zoning for this, future will also have a problem where you're gonna have to come across this where another business is gonna wanna move in someplace else in our town and possibly make it bigger than what they have. I don't feel that this town is, the residents are ready for something like this, at least not next door to them. I think there are better places, even in Woodbridge, that are commercially zoned, that they can handle something better for the kids, where there'll be better facilities for healthcare and bringing them places where they want to go. I don't feel that this is a great place for any kind of a thing for adult care. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other members of the public who have not spoken yet who'd like to go? Thank you. And thank you for signing in.
So I'm Kanon Montegro, also residing at 6 Jeremy Garden Lane. You already heard from my wife. So the comment I would make is I also feel for the parents of these autistic children. It seems that they have a pretty good setup already for their kids. I see no reason why they should have to expand it. My guess is that there would be some scope creep over time, that things would want to expand, and that would be terrible for us being directly abutting the property. Even if they were to employ security measures such as fences and things, that would be a significant change for just the visual of our property, which is directly adjacent to theirs. Our house is probably only 20 to 30 feet from theirs, so even though it's a different, just because of how our houses are set up, it's a significant issue for us. And I'm sure other neighbors in the area are also concerned about that. So I'm sure that they could probably continue to address the needs of their own kids, their own adult kids, and not have to expand and be specially zoned for a daycare. I don't see the need for that level of growth. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there other members of the public who would like to share a public comment? I'll ask again, other members of the public who would like to share a public comment? And as is tradition, I was asked 3 times, anyone else would like to share public comments? All right, thank you very much. Hearing none, we shall close our public hearing. We need a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Paul Schatz, moved and seconded by Jeff Kennedy. We are closing the application for a special exception permit for the Adult Day Care Center at 67 Pease Road. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
You need to seat an alternate.
Where are we on our monthly?
Aaron wasn't here last week, or last month, so he didn't vote.
Aaron will seat you for this one.
Okay.
So any discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So we have closed our public hearing. I'd like to thank Chris for helping us manage the public hearing. I want to thank the commission members for being good listeners and for their questions of the applicant. I look forward to our deliberations when we reach our work session. I'd like to thank the applicants for their informative presentation during the process and their written materials. And I'd like to thank the public for your comments today in our open comment session and through the large number of written submissions that we've received and have entered into the record. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your opinions and views here today, and also the opinions and views that were expressed in the list of comments that I read earlier that we have received on this application. Alrighty, so we're going to move to new business. Folks are welcome to stay if you'd like, but we are going to go through the rest of our agenda. We will address the application later. Right, as folks are moving, Chris, did we have anyone from 804 Fountain Street today?
No, they weren't coming because you're receiving it. You need to schedule it for a public hearing, and since it needs a public hearing, anything they'd say, they'd have to re-say, so.
Yep. You know, they pulled that out and then put it back in. Was there anything they modified in particular?
Yes,
So it's in the materials, right?
I haven't read all the materials, but the highlights that I can see are that they've moved around the number of units, so they've decreased the number of studio apartments, they've increased the number of one bedroom, 2 bedrooms have remained the same, so they're staying at 96 units. There was a question of whether or not they needed to seek an application to the Inland Wetlands Agency. So they've had that clarified. There is a little bit of wetlands on the site. Most of the wetlands are on the adjoining property in New Haven, and they've kept the Inland Wetlands Agency in Woodbridge regulates within 100 feet of wetlands, whether they're in Woodbridge or whether they're in an adjoining town. So they've kept the activity away from more than 100 feet away, so. So there is no need for an application to inland wetlands.
So for this, we are just scheduling for the public
So
hearing?
you're just going to schedule a public hearing. I'm assuming you want to send it off to the planner, to consulting engineer, traffic consultant, and then last time you also were having town council review. So.
Town council and the town's planning.
And the
consultant.
town planner, yeah.
Sure. I think that makes sense. Again, I know Andrew's recused.
Mhm.
So none of that work was done for the first time?
No, because they
withdrew it.
They withdrew
Yeah.
it, so there was no
Okay.
traffic that started. There was some comment that came in from the planner. I guess they've addressed perhaps some of that, but it's going to go back to them again.
Okay.
But there wasn't any written comment received from our engineer.
And again, to align it with Scroggs' timing, is this something we should schedule for 2 months out?
It needs
or-
to go to the city of New Haven too, and I think you've got the application in May to change your regulations, so I'm
May's a
assuming
bus-
that
a
may
busy
be a
agenda. Very
big
busy.
hearing.
Seems like a better.
So I think the better part of valor to allow time for your consultants to get comment back and then have them respond and not dump 2 big hearings on you at once, that you may want to schedule this for June.
Great, so I think I'll make a motion to schedule this for our June regular meeting.
Second.
I'll let Aaron second.
Aaron takes it.
Yeah, moved and seconded. All in favor of scheduling it for public hearing and including the referrals that we have just outlined? Say,
You said June, right?
June.
June,
Yes, sorry,
yeah.
yes, June. Any discussion on the motion?
Chris, could we ask Attorney Nuff, he probably will be able to do this, but can we ask him to create as exhaustive as possible a list of the differences between the last application and this one? So we have that, kind of clearly visible to us. Thank you.
Right, with that additional instruction, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So,
I'll abstain.
yes, or yes, abstain. Great. Next up on our agenda is the application for 110 Bradley Road. And I will be recusing myself from this one, so Jeff, I will let you take control.
Oh, boy.
So if the applicants,
If
the
the
applicants
applicants
are-
could come
are
forward.
here.
Yeah, if they're here, can you come forward, please?
do you want me to leave?
Please.
You're supposed to.
Wait a minute, hold on. From the last time Jeff was in charge.
You're in very good hands.
Now, just as a point of order, now that Chairman Clee left, does that mean I need to get seated, or?
Yeah,
Only
you
because
need-
if I do, I don't think I need to recuse myself. I do want to disclose that my son did play soccer with Everson 10 years ago, but
I'd be happy to see you, if that would make sense.
I don't believe that would I don't think that's a major conflict for me to recuse myself. I just want to disclose for the record that it
Yeah.
was 10 years ago when my son was part of the Jenga program.
My kids did the Woodbridge program at the park
Yeah.
that they run, I think, 2 years ago. They're not currently, but
Yeah.
that's,
Or probably many kids are
yeah,
connected with Everson one way or the other.
certainly.
So Chris, can we see her for this one vote, this one matter?
Sure.
Sure, okay, so you.
I mean, it's her choice to recuse herself or not, and she's
Understood. Okay,
stated
great.
why she doesn't believe she needs to.
I
And-
agree.
And Aaron's also stated why
Okay.
he doesn't need to.
My kids didn't play soccer, if that matters.
You should recuse yourself. You don't know.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up. We appreciate it, and thank you for what you do for our town. Why don't you state your name? Did you sign in?
Same, yeah.
Okay, and then tell us your name, and then why don't you tell us about your project?
So it's Everson Maciel, owner of Everson Soccer Academy, Jing FC in Brazil, Connecticut. We've been doing camps in town since 2005. I think that's our first campus in Bethany. So we've been around for a while. In 2013, and again, we work really well with Parks and Rec, providing some of the fields. And also in 2013, we took over of a partial rent or lease at the Sports Center. So we operate most of our business at 21 South Bradley, especially during the winter, and West River Fields, which is on Bradley, South Bradley Road as well. We came across last year to a property right next door, which is 110 Bradley Road, which is, was the tennis central, which they do a lot of tennis. For us, location, there's a need of soccer fields in town. We have been using a lot of Hampden Hall or West Haven. So for our Woodbridge community, which is being our base, people are going different places. But with this option of us buying that property and the need we have, and actually talking to the town as well for community use it, we would like to see if there's a possibility of putting a soccer field at 11th. There is the space. Traffic, same that we use throughout the winter. This is the same area. And of course, lights, so it can expand the times that we use it to make worthwhile the investment. And I think that's what we're looking for. It's to see the possibilities of that property that we can do. Of course, they had a bubble before, so I think the bubble could help us, but not necessarily. The need, I think it's an outdoor field with lights, for the town and for our programs.
So, I have a question about the lighting. So there's no lighting there now, is that correct? Or
No,
it's
because
limited lighting,
it was
right?
lighting, but it was a bubble over. So that the tennis, I don't know if you guys have the paper, but there's the 5 tennis courts.
Yeah.
We would love to do the field across behind the clubhouse, so we don't modify any of the parking. The parking, there's 86 parking spaces. On a back-to-back soccer game, I think for the numbers would be around 80. If everybody drives, about 80. 80 cars driving, and so we have plenty parking at the place. But there's no lights right there. I think they use it because it's of the tennis courts, but we'll probably need a little. I don't know the.
And those go off at night when you're done using the field, right? When people are done playing.
Yes.
Right.
So I think it's to make, especially in the fall. Right now we're using West River in the fall, and then we finish when the lights, when the sunlights go down. I think for us it won't change, the location, the traffic coming in and out, because it'll be the same. We're not expanding or doing more. We're just gonna be on the same location, I guess.
Understood. Any commission members have any questions?
Is this for both children and adults?
We do only children. We don't do adults. Of course, the usage, we probably have some interest on adults' wine.
but our business is mainly kids, starting at 2-year-old up to 18.
If you were to have, I guess the question is, do you have any relationship or do you know anything about the property owners of 136? It looks like there's a large industrial building sort of on the third side of that field. So I guess the first question is, do you know who owns that property? Do you have any communication with them?
Is the, and again, am I saying, is the 136 behind?
Yeah,
Behind
it looks like it's sort of on the east side of the bubble. You know, it's the building that's sort of.
So if it's the same, I think that this is the same owner because they bought 110 and 136 with one, kind of one deal. So I believe it's the same owners that we're dealing with.
And do you know if that 86 parking space number includes the parking that's available?
No.
Okay.
It's just the 110, just what is in front of the clubhouse.
Okay. I guess what I'm wondering is if parking became an issue at some point, if there would be a possibility for any overflow to be directed to that 136 property. I know it's probably not a question you can confidently answer now, but I think it'd be something that would be worth exploring.
I think because our hours of practices would be from 5 to 9, so definitely nothing happening in the area. And I know there's other properties there for lease. And in my vision, every time I come into Woodbridge, and that's since 2005, it's that area to be I think it's not well explored yet in being with sports, baseball there, of course, on the town, our soccer, volleyball. I see this being a sports. I think they have in Fairfield. It's a sports. We can definitely use the parking on, if there's a need, work with them.
I'm not sure I fully understand. Are the existing tennis courts to be torn off or remain in place?
To the turf, yes. To be turned off and then, or rip it down and put a turf across.
It is the same owner there
It is the same one.
at both those parcels, Anytime Sports. I think it used to be a skate park in that building. Do you have
It's
any?
had many
Yeah,
variations.
there's a sign still up. I walk that area with the dog while my kids do various sports. And there's an old sign that says skate park this way, and so I did some research and it was in that.
We went inside, so when that property is being sold, we're kind of involved, but we didn't want to stay separate.
Whatever it is, it's underutilized. There's doesn't seem to be.
I think they're using for parking now for some, I don't know, some parking, so but it's definitely, there's a possibility if, there's a overflow.
What time, so the lighting, what time do you guys finish up?
9 o'clock, 9:15, the latest. And I don't see us going longer because it's the kids. They gotta be. We push 9 now because we use Notre Dame. So our kids go all the way to Notre Dame, West Haven, and they have their programs finishing at 7:30. So we use 7:30 tonight. But I see us starting at 5 and finishing before 9 o'clock.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, we're still in the new business section, right? We're in the new business, so.
If you, as long as he's out of the room, if you want to act on it now.
I would. I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for 110 Bradley Road with the expansion of the soccer field with turf and lights.
Second.
Now take a vote. All those in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion?
If I remember correctly, the only issue was some question about the adequacy of the parking, right? The use is consistent with the prior use?
Yes.
Yeah. That wasn't a question, that was just.
It was just you were just commenting, a feature of the area. I'm sure they can work it out.
Can I add one thing or no?
Yes.
Not in the middle of a motion, no.
No.
All right, Jeff, you're fired.
I'm
You're
fired.
done.
Okay. Sorry.
That's it.
All right, further discussion? I'll have, any more comments? Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yeah, Chairman Clee abstained.
No.
No, he's
No,
recused.
he's
He's
not
not part of the
recused.
meeting.
He's recused, he's not.
Okay.
He's not even here.
Good.
So no abstentions.
No abstentions. Okay,
Motion
good. Our motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, so now somebody needs to get Rob back in.
Quickly.
I think you did a wonderful job.
Yeah, you did.
We're
Fine
trying to
job.
train Jeff, but it's
Thank you.
a work in progress.
Jeff, at the 8-hour training session that Kathy and I
Yeah.
attended on March 22nd,
Very good.
I learned
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
you do not have to follow Robert's Rules of Order. You can follow Jeff's Rules of Order.
That's right.
There's
Sorry,
no
Rob.
rule
We're changing
book.
them.
All right.
Jeff buys next time too. Food and drink.
So we are now, we've gone through our new business. We are now at our work session. So it looks like we don't have Derek Waskowitz for 110 Luciani Street. So we can move to our discussion.
I just want to note that I did hand you out a letter that
Yep,
was
thank you.
submitted today from Rosalie Rowan, and I should report to all of you, in case you haven't heard, that they did encounter some ledge, and they will be doing some blasting, and they are, have applied for a blasting permit from the fire marshal. And from what I've been told, typically there's one size, it's like a size 3, and the blaster is aware of the concerns of the people in the area, and so he's proposing to use half that. And
When-
that's
when-
as much as I've got for you.
When does, I know you've said this before, but I forget. When does the current permit expire?
May 1st,
Pretty soon.
pretty
It
soon.
is pretty soon. Any questions for Chris on 110 Luciani?
Does that mean we should expect to hear a request for an extension soon?
I do not know.
Okay.
But
I
if it
know they've
expires,
re-
that's it, right? He can't do any more work.
Huh?
He can't do further work, right, Chris? I don't know if it expired.
Well, this
May
is just,
1st it expires.
this is just
So he has
the
the
site
rest of
work
the month.
application, not the.
And
not
then
the-
it
yeah.
goes into the building permit, so then there would be work under the building permit, which he's been issued. So he's just got to complete the site prep.
Excavation.
Right.
Okay,
Keep us posted.
I will.
All right, so now we have in our work session the discussion of the special exception permit for an adult daycare at 67 Pease Road. I will note that daycares are covered by section 3.3 M of our, I'm sorry, 3.1 M? Yes, 3.1 M of our zoning regulations, which outlines the uses allowed by zone, which does for adult daycare note in that table 3.1 of our zoning regulations that adult daycares are allowed by site plan in all of our business and mixed-use districts, but they are also allowed in our residential districts by special exception, which is why we had a public hearing on the proposed special exception that was in front of us. Just so procedurally, all of us and the public, which may have raised a few questions about the...
People asked about it.
Yeah, that everyone is clear that it is allowed in our residential districts only if a special exception permit is approved, which is what the applicants have asked for today and what we've had a public hearing on. So I think, Aaron, you're seated for this one now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a quick comment about I think it's too bad that we're having this conversation after everyone has left.
I know.
And obviously it's too late to do anything, but I do, and maybe it's something we would consider because we're gonna have a lot of people in the next couple meetings, and I don't know if that, reading our zoning regulation, I think would have been useful. We're going to come to a decision either way, and maybe the people would have left anyways, but this discussion that we're going to have about the technicalities, and I think it's a disservice to the neighbors that they are not here. And if we had just gone right into it after, and I don't know if we're prevented by our, by our regulations or custom, but having our discussion, and it makes our discussion more difficult probably, because you have to look at the people who just talked when maybe you oppose what they said, but something to think about for the contentious conversations that we're going to have at Fountain Street and about our regulation. And it just seems like having the conversation with the people, or not, well, I mean, the problem obviously is also it's call and response. We've had that before, so it is a double-edged sword. But I do think that just reading the zoning regulations, which would have been the first thing that I wanted, that you did, rightfully, would have been useful too.
Yeah, and Chris, is this custom? Is this that we always wait and go through our entire agenda until we get to our work session?
That's the way it's been, but it's your agenda and you can set it up however
I think
you
it's
want.
just a discussion that maybe we should have as a commission, as a board to
Yeah,
I would be interested to hear other people's thoughts, but
I agree with Aaron, and this is not a second guess in any respect, but just going forward, if you might introduce the public hearing by saying that it's an application for special permit under table 3.1 in section 3.3M of the zoning regulations, and here's what what those sections provide,
Because many of the
without any comment about whether it meets the criteria or not.
I hear that, though would I do both that and the fact that our special exception has a whole list of its requirements and the things we're also going to be deliberating. At some point, I'm giving a 20-minute sort of lesson, but
I think the issue is many of the public thought that we were given a zoning change, and it was not a zoning change. It was something that was permitted in residential A, and I think if they understood that, they felt that we were making a zoning change that was going to have future ramifications for the neighborhood.
And part of that should be part of our deliberation on this particular application, because I want us to talk about that as well. But you're right, they will only get that if they watch the video afterwards.
Yeah, I have a different view. I think I would not read all that at the beginning. I think once you set that precedent, then it's got to be done for everything that comes forth. Because once that genie's out of the bottle, for any other thing, someone could say the same thing. I didn't know. I think that you can introduce it now, but before people leave, I forgot what you said when they left.
I said they're welcome to stay if they like, but that we're going to take it up in our work session.
Right, and the only thing I would have said in hindsight was, we are going to discuss the regulations and the application in work session. You're welcome to stay.
Yeah.
I think people, I'm guessing, I don't want to speak for anybody left, but I think they thought the whole thing is over. I think the way our meetings flow is fine. I don't want to have you read all this stuff at the beginning of, because this is just controversial. What about the ones that are not controversial? You got to do it anyway then.
I also think it's important that if you're providing some sort of unprompted and, not sort of statutorily or whatever procedurally required reference to the parts of the zoning regulations that are germane to the issue under consideration, there's some kind of idea or expectation that you're going to be complete in doing that. And if you make there's some kind of minor omission or something, if somebody could come back later and say, well, Chairman Cleeden didn't mention that this part of the zoning regulations was relevant to this particular issue. I don't think, if we want to change the order in which we do business, that's fine. I don't think reading the relevant sections or pointing out the relevant sections is a good precedent.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I just recall, and even looking at our agenda, sometimes the statute sections are in the actual sort of request. This one wasn't, and I was just reading off of the agenda for today. I think, and just so everyone knows, I know I am holding back from, it is our rule that we're not having an engaged conversation with the folks who are providing public comment, that is actually required of us to unfortunately stay silent, even though I would have liked to have shared.
Now, is that part of the law?
That's at least the
Because I've
advice
been
that
on this commission where there has been sometimes back and forth, and it can sometimes get out of hand.
Yeah.
Paul's been there too, but sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's helpful, Mr. Chairman.
the advice that I got from council way back, actually, with the Open Communities presentation is part of the script that I read. Was blessed by our council at the time that we are not having a conversation. We are here to receive your public comment, but not have we're not going to answer your questions or go back and forth. So if that is something that our current town council would advise us is good, bad, or otherwise, I'm willing to listen, but at least that was the advice I had received in my early days, and I've sort of stuck with that. So this is all a good sort of prelude on process, and maybe we come back to it at the end of the meeting. I do want to actually, so I will actually move to approve the application for a special exception permit for adult daycare under 3.1M of our zoning regulations for 67 Pease Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Aaron, and now is the time for our conversation, since that motion has been moved and seconded. Anyone from the commission care to begin?
May I ask Chris, by way of context, what other home-based businesses are there in town? Are there? Is it a long
there
list?
are many home-based businesses.
Okay.
And truthfully, your home occupation or resident office or, small home bakery doesn't even require this level of input. It's just a zoning permit from me where they submit an affidavit saying they swear they're going to meet that section of the regulations, which goes on to say how many employees they can have and all that other good stuff. So we have that kind. We do not, to the best of my knowledge, have another type of adult daycare for those with special needs that's in the residential district that I'm aware of. I know of one that's or at least two or more that are in the, in a business or commercial area.
Do we have any residential group homes?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah, that was my.
And they're both in residential
that was my
A
assumption.
zone.
So it sounds like there's no apples to apples comparable enterprise that in terms of traffic and the number of individuals that are expected to be on site. It sounds like this would be a minimum of, let's just say, 12 people and their vehicles. So I just want to make sure I'm correct in that there's not really precedent or a specific comparison of another place in town in a residential A zone where there's this size operation.
The group homes that are on Amity Road and Litchfield Turnpike have staff, and probably, I think the 12 cars is when you've got turnover kind of thing, rather than all the time. But if you drive by them and you know where they are, you'll see that there's.
Is there no longer a group home off of Mapleville, Richard Sweet, Dickinson, that area?
I'm sorry?
Is there no longer that group home, halfway house, I don't know what, you go down Richard Sweet, you make a right, you make a left.
That's a different type of, that's not for special needs kids.
Right, that's just, I get that.
Yeah,
And then-
I'm not sure. We treat them as a single-family house.
Got it, okay.
And so I will repeat now that we're in our sort of motion that our regulations do contemplate allowing this type of activity, a daycare in our residential zone through special exception. It does have a lesser requirement if it was located in our business or mixed use districts, we would only need site plan approval. So that's one thing. The other part of our regulations worth noting is that we are in the world of special exceptions, and they were required to provide an application that included a list of things under section 6.3. But a key for us is that the threshold for our granting of a special exception is in 6.3C, which is our role as the commission to consider but not be limited by the health, safety, and welfare of the public in general and the immediate neighborhood, compliance with the plan, in particular, compliance with the plan of conservation and development, the location and size of the proposed use, the nature and intensity of the proposed use, and any operations involved in the use, the safety and intensity of traffic circulation on the site and on adjacent streets, the scale of the proposed site and structures, the harmony and appropriateness of the use and site design in relation to the general area, to the adjacent properties, and compliance with the zoning regulations and our site plan objectives in 6.4, etc. So we can also put conditions and safeguards related to any of those factors on any approval. So I've made a general motion, but I am willing to entertain folks who want to impose conditions, because I know we talked about at least a few on the size, on the roll of the fence, the requirements to get the licensure from DDS, other sorts of things. So I want to just make sure we're all talking based on the rules in our zoning regulations.
I would suggest a condition no more than 6 adults, including the 3 permanent residents of the house.
Yeah, and that was stated by the applicant as their goal is a maximum of 6, is what I noted.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't talk. Sorry.
I mean, I see a letter of support from 2 neighbors on Twin Brook Drive.
Also, one of the abutters, one of their neighbors also submitted a letter of support.
Okay.
I will note just for the record that I am friends with Emily and Dave Bannock, who are part of the April 7th letter, but that I don't think requires me to recuse myself.
I mean, with the exception of those letters, the sentiment from the neighbors, I mean, the people who have demonstrated, I think, with their detailed comments, the way in which they currently are impacted and the way in which they are concerned that they will be impacted, was overwhelmingly in opposition. I don't think that is trivial.
I guess my comment would be the Gittermans have their 3 children and they have one-to-one care, and her stated goal is to provide for a better, more engagement with her, with peers of her children, more benefit to the staff, and more opportunities to socialize and to leave the property. And they are the 3 children are the residents of the property. And so, as an alternative, presumably, if we deny this, they can have, I'm not sure, speaking about this a little, they can have play dates every day with their friends and their friends' caregivers. And they can have 3 friends over every day, and
they could have
9 to 5.
10 friends.
Yeah, well, exactly. They can have 10 friends over, 9 to 5, and they can spend their time in and they can, without any of the oversight that the Department of Developmental Disability provides. And one of the questions that I thought of after was to ask about, there's obviously, she mentioned pre-inspection for the application. I would imagine, just from my own knowledge of working with the state, that there are ongoing inspections. I've had, in my professional life, anything with the state, they want to ongoing supervise it to keep the license. I don't know for a fact that that's the case, but I would imagine that you have to renew the license at some point. We could look into that. But so I understand the residents' concerns, but it would seem like, and obviously if they rent a place in the commercial district, that's different. But if her children, seems like put a lot of effort into this house to make it very suitable for her children. And the alternative is an unlicensed facility that is just for her house and anyone who she invites over, and who they invite over. So it seems like there are benefits that licensing would provide, and limiting to 6 is in line with what she wants and will help prevent the scope creep that some of the residents talked about. She seems willing to put up a fence in the front yard, or maybe in the backyard, or some landscaping. We could discuss that. I think that would be, I'm not so worried about the people running into the road, because it seems to be one-to-one care, so that's part of their job. But I'm trying to think of this, obviously we're taking her word that she's not trying to create a conglomerate that will, turn the street into group homes. But, there's no other adult daycares on the street. And if she wanted to buy the house next door and create an adult daycare franchise next door, we would presumably say no, because 2 is too intense a use. But it does seem like having 6 people in this kind of house does not significantly, impact the residential feel.
It doesn't seem that way to the neighbors.
But they don't. Yes, but you're right. But the addition of 3 more individuals, I question how significant that would be, the change. And
part of the significance. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
No. That's
Part of the significance is that these adults, these adult children that reside there, sound like they've gotten outstanding care and that they have outstanding dedicated caregivers. And the residents still seem like they're rolling with a little bit of inconvenience that they've learned to live with and accept. We don't have any representation or warranty about the nature of the other caregivers that might be coming in, about the other individuals that may be there on a daily basis, about the social responsibility or social awareness of whatever larger entities. I don't know anything about Marrakesh or the other groups that the consultant mentioned. How their employees are going to interact with the neighbors in the neighborhood. I mean, I think that we're making assumptions. We're not making assumptions. I think that we're speculating about what might be, in a place where we don't live. The neighbors have already said they're not thrilled with the way things are currently. They don't want to see it expanded. The neighbor that lives behind them said they think that a fence would really change the visual nature of the street and the neighborhood, and it sounded like they were opposed to a fence.
And yet, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Please.
but if they wanted to put up a fence right now, they could do it without any special exception.
And they've chosen not to.
I don't have a fence either, but I might choose to put one up. But
also, my understanding of the application is the consultant currently works for Marrakesh, is retiring, and Marrakesh, which is a supportive housing and social service provider that's located in Woodbridge and has facilities, I don't know if throughout the state, but in many surrounding towns. They will have no relation and no other, they will have it unless they are providing the one-to-one service. And I think, you're right that I'm running on assumptions here, but that the fact that they will be licensed by the state does put restrictions on the staff, presumably the staff, to access state funding. There are requirements for the licensing of the individual staff. You have to be a licensed social worker, whatever the requirement is, to be a one-to-one caregiver. Presumably that is an additional level of oversight that's not currently in place at the property.
When they become an agency, they are going to go
Yeah.
to a next level of regulation by the state and DDS because they are now
Yeah.
a formal entity providing this,
Yeah.
or at least the day portion, because
Yeah.
she did note that her 3 children get 24/7 care
Yeah.
from folks who are licensed again by the DDS because DDS is supporting
Yeah.
the payment of those. The formalization or professionalization of their program and agency will enable them. So as part of, they will be more heavily regulated by the state, but they will also allow them to provide staff now to this agency entity benefits like insurance or stability, hopefully, in that instead of being that one person assigned through that sort of individual support. Their theory here is that the stability of being a more professional agency located at this site will give them that at least more continuity in their staffing as well. I'd like to
So
know.
could we add that, please, Mr. Chairman, I mean, could we add that to the motion that they be licensed as adult care providers we've been discussing as part of it? That they keep their license up, I guess.
We could probably add something to that effect, but I think they can't be an agency providing these services without that license, so I don't.
I think that's, I mean, first of all, they're regulated. So if it
So
goes
it's an
through,
obvious thing, you're saying?
it's, I mean, redundant would be the nice way to put it, but I think it's overreach on our part. This has nothing to do with, I mean, I know nothing about the operating an adult daycare. I don't know anything about the regulations, the requirements. I just know that this is an application for a special exception. I think that we're kind of getting, we're trafficking in areas that.
You think we're overreaching our role?
I just think, I mean, I know nothing, I have no skill set here.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, here's what I heard. I heard the epitome of not in my backyard. And I understand it because I don't want, I feel the same way on my street. I like to keep everything the same. I'm a creature of habit. But traffic, I mean, we're really talking about that much traffic for three more participants and 3 staff. And then I heard, the lawn and the chair on the lawn and walking on the street. I mean, I walk on Beecher Road. That is a death trap that the town knows about. So that's horrific. Everyone's complained about it. Nothing's ever been done. And you're talking about dozens of people, at all light hours. I mean, you're talking about another 6 people on what is a busy street. I feel like that shouldn't be part of it. I understand, and I totally understand your point. If I was a resident, I'd say the same thing. I don't like any change. That's me.
When you say if you were a resident, you would say the same thing. What do you mean? If you were a neighbor?
So if I was a neighbor, because I don't like change in my neighborhood.
But
right?
this is not in your backyard.
But if it was, I'd say the same thing. That'd be my rationale, because I don't like change.
And would you want to come here and have people say, yeah, but it's not our backyard?
No, but I'm saying is you have to take a step back. Very few people like change in their neighborhood. It's like someone said to me, well, we're going to change the acreage, the minimum acre lots on your street from 2 to 1 or 1 to 1/2. I don't want change. I moved to my street. I wanted to keep things the way it is. So I fully understand what their concerns are. But as I look at their concerns, I mean, the children of the family's adults walking on the lawn. I mean, I have people walk on my lawn. There are adults on my street walk on my lawn, and I don't think they put a chair on my lawn. But are people loud? I have people who walk down Beecher Road. They're loud.
Do you want to double the number of people that walk on your lawn? Do you want to double the number of people being loud in the
But
street?
I didn't hear rationale to prevent this from going through. I heard things that I would, in my own, because I don't like change. I understand they don't want change either. But I don't think anything rises to the level of this shouldn't go through.
It's not about, I mean, the opposition to this going through is not about just change. I mean, people gave clear descriptions and comments about the intensity of the use. I mean, that's part of our mandate, part of our mission, to think about the intensity of the use, about the congruence with public safety. People have said we have public safety concerns currently. There are 3 adults currently and their caregivers currently walking shoulder to shoulder on the street. I mean, we can't regulate the behavior of anybody else who comes to this home if it doubles in size. Are they going to be 6 or 12 across in the street? I'm surprised that we're kind of getting in the position of voting down the majority. It's a very clear majority of neighbors who are in strong opposition to this.
But Ben, what about the point I think Aaron brought about that I found persuasive? That you could just have 10 or 20 people over to your house every day, just call them up on the phone to come over for a party. Like that's you could do that whenever you want, right?
So why do you think they don't choose to do that? Why do you think they don't? They're not doing that.
But it's a choice. So you could have like 10 or 20
Why do you think it's a
people come
choice?
to your house.
Why do you think it's a choice?
As a homeowner, you can choose to have 10 or 20 people.
So why don't you think they're doing that now? Does anybody have a guess as to why they're not doing that now? Because they're going to unlock additional funding. They're going to unlock additional services, right?
Agreed.
So there's a reason they don't do it, because it wouldn't be convenient and it would be expensive and it would invite noise complaints and the neighbors would get hostile and they would just get chased away. So they don't do it because they can't feasibly do it. Socially, they can't feasibly do it. That's why they don't do it.
But what is that any different? I guess I'm thinking out loud.
But I
Is
meant
that
any
different?
like we could have I could have 10 people over to my house every day
So,
just for a
so
party.
but this is
like legally.
these types of I could build a fence,
I didn't
I
mean
could
to
have
step
a
on that.
party.
Yeah.
You're missing the point. There's a
so party.
reason that the fence doesn't exist. There's a reason that the parties aren't happening every day, and it's because the neighbors would find those things objectionable. And part of being a neighbor and being part of a neighborhood is thinking about the values and preferences of your neighbors. And as soon as you say, well, yeah, we're neighbors, but also we're a business. Yeah, we're neighbors, but also we're a state licensed entity. So we're going to go by the state rules. You know, we're going to go by the letter of the law. And, you know, I know it's inconvenient for you. I know that you don't like the change to the character of the neighborhood, but we got a zoning exception and we're licensed. So, you know, that's the reason that there's not a fence. That's the reason there's not a party every single day, because it just wouldn't be sustainable. And so this is permission to sustain that kind of activity. And the neighbors came and said, we don't want that kind of activity. It's really, I mean,
If I was to play devil's advocate, not that I really, but if a family of 15 moved in into the neighborhood, and they had, you know, caregivers and babysitters and the like, and they're all under the age of 14, and they're walking shoulder to shoulder down Pease Road, and kids are loud, they're running around with baseball bats, and is that any different?
it's different because the police would be there constantly. They probably would get, you know, if this hypothetical scenario you're describing, if there were excessive noise, they would get warnings and then maybe citations. I'm not exactly sure how those types of things are enforced. It would be something that would be a point of, you know, concern and irritation for the neighborhood. It wouldn't be something that is, you know, zoning accepted, state licensed, regulated. You know, we're just press and play.
So I appreciate your comments. I understand them, and I think that the intensity of the use is an important point, and that our role here is we do have to evaluate that. And there is certainly a number that she would give that I would say that's too intensive a use. And I think that each of us has to decide if 3 more is reasonable, or, you know, or if no more is reasonable. But I do think that it is, looking at a lot of the neighbors' concerns, a lot of them had to do with whether this was going to be a slippery slope, and I honestly don't. It's contemplated in the zoning law as something that, you know, is something that would come up. So that honestly gives me a little bit of that this was contemplated and is already in the zoning regulations, and that there is not other commercial. We're not adding to, you know, if the next door was a home baker and it was, and that it is doubling. It's going from 3 to 6. That, in my mind, that's a reasonable increase in the intensity. If she came in and she said, I wanted to, you know, have to add 6 more.
No, it's going from 6 to 12. per their
individuals in the house.
plus caregivers.
No, it's going from 3 residents who have special
To
needs
12.
to 6 residents, to
Right.
6 individuals and their caregivers. So it would be 6 clients, we'll say, and a maximum of 6. She said, people with 1-to-1. I guess we could try to, but theoretically she could have 1 additional person who has a high level special need and then 2 more who had a medium level and they had a shared caregiver. So, and I do think that increased social experiences will make the current residents more social. I mean, it's like what she said about COVID and the regressing really hit home with me because of my 3-year-old during COVID and my 6-year-old and they don't have any special needs that I know of, but they, not going to school, they regressed in their behavior. We had lots of, they were louder and they acted out more, not being exposed to classmates and all the social things that we had. And so, I mean, I'm looking at this with my priors, and I completely, I'm not trying to invalidate the concerns of the residents or your good points and valid points that you're bringing up. I'm just saying that for me, there's a level, and I think 3 additional people who may be allowed and who will be walking around and their caregivers is a reasonable level of intensity. And that is informing my vote.
And I mean, why should this go forward in a residential A neighborhood? Why? I mean, because of the convenience of the applicant? For the convenience of the applicant? I mean, you said they put a lot of work into this house. Is that a reason that we should make this kind of exception?
Well, it's allowed.
It's allowed
first
in
of-
our.
That's why.
I mean, that's because it's a contemplated use, but also because I think it's a better, you could put something like this in, I can't think of one of the streets, in Bradley Road in the commercial, and it's, in the middle of the day, then we'd be walking against truck traffic. It's I think there's an argument to be made for, we moved to Woodbridge because we like this type of semi-rural area, and that having the, for your children and for, others who have that similar thing, wanting them to spend their time there instead of in a storefront is a reasonable thing, and it fits within our zoning regulation.
Other
I feel like I'm
comment, I want to
talking-
make sure we're.
I feel like I'm talking
hearing
too much, so I
all
don't
voices.
want to monopolize.
Jeff or Andrew, anything else you'd like to add? The one, so I'll add a few comments of my own. I do view this as of the same kind of activity that is already happening in this location, and the degree to which it would be additional is, to me, within that line or zone where it doesn't feel like it's crossing the line into a extremely large operation. I note that a number of our folks in public comment and the folks who submitted letters were concerned about opening up to other businesses, being this commercialization of our residential zones, and that's where, to me, it's important to note that we've already decided through our zoning regulations that this type of adult daycare and childcare centers, et cetera, are allowed in our residential district through the special exception process, where we do get to look at the intensity of the use and the other sorts of things. But it is contemplated that this would happen in our residential zones. We've already, by the way we've devised our zoning regulations, made that put a thumb on the scale towards these being allowable in these residential districts, which means something to me. The folks who are worried about creep in size and scale, I think I would agree that having a specific cap at 6 clients, and recognizing that may mean up to 6 caregivers if they're at a 1-to-1 ratio, but it may be less than that in terms of caregiving. The other thing I'll note, this is a day program. This is not a 24-hour. This is just during those hours, during the standard hours of daytime operation, which again is a time, I think, that makes sense for this operation. The question of the fence seems to go a number of ways. They are open to putting a fence in. We did at least hear from, I think, a number of the neighbors wanted fencing, or a number of the letters we received. Although that could have been in the form letter, which I need to go back and double check. So I would lean towards requiring some sort of reasonable fencing, if just for that sort of area where they're doing outside programming, if it's in the back, which seems in keeping with our regulations, sort of contemplate where you have activities that are happening outside, they want those outside activities being fenced, and they did talk a bit about how then some of the pictures included a basketball and other sorts of things. So it seems like outdoor recreational activities, our regulations seem to suggest you should have a fence around those types of recreational activities, which would be where I would lean on fencing. On the roads and traffic, I'm actually a fan of walking in roads and taking your space to require cars not to squeeze by you. So I'm actually more of a fan of walking shoulder to shoulder, side by side in the road as a safety. I also bike in the middle of the road.
It's annoying as hell.
It is annoying as hell to the driver because I have to slow down and actually.
No, I do that too. I take up as much space, and I go when I'm driving, I go to the full other side of the road to pass people to try to, I walk on Newton, and it's like.
And yes, we have a number of the close by neighbors who wrote letters in opposition, and including a number who have signed on to the form letter, but we did have a few letter writers who did show their appreciation and their acceptance of this operation. And I do know that many of even our public commenters were supportive of the owners, their kids, the activities they were currently doing. And then some of those wanted to at least understand that this wasn't going to now suddenly make their zone a commercial zone beyond that operation. So for all of those reasons, I'm in favor of approving with the conditions around the size maximum at 6 participants, including the 3 that are currently the children of the owners, plus 3 more and their caregivers. The requirement of fence around those areas where they're doing outdoor recreation activities on their property. I think those are the other conditions that we may require. Conditions, by the way, do run with the special exception permit and remain with the property as long as the special exception use permit is in operation and continue in force regardless if there's any change of ownership in the property as well. So those run with the approval, should it be granted.
For the record, I'm also in favor of adults with disabilities receiving, the maximum services they can. Absolutely. I mean, I know Dave Bannock too. I like him. I have a cousin with the most severe form of autism, and I want him to have good care throughout his entire life. I just think the question here is, it doesn't sound like there's precedent for making a decision here, and our feelings about intensity are just incongruent with the feelings expressed by the neighbors, and that's what I'm struggling with.
No, I appreciate your, it's gonna be, we're gonna have this.
Yeah, wait till you see the next.
We're gonna have this is gonna be a common theme.
This is,
over the next coming months.
Socialization can happen in a center that's in more of a mixed-use area. A center that's in more of a mixed-use area can be a place where adults with special needs converge with their caregivers in order to take trips to the beach. I haven't heard anything about this specific location that makes it well suited to this kind of use, except that a family with 3 autistic children already own the property. We're doing it for the convenience of this family, for the financial considerations of this family. And I'd like to be able to help this family, but not over the objections of 8 or 10 families around them.
Any additional comments, thoughts? So, although I've been now told I don't have to follow Robert's Rules of Order, do we need an amendment of my original motion to take into account the conditions, or?
Well, you were the mover,
I was the
so
mover.
You have to accept
if you accept those changes and then Aaron seconded it,
Second of the
and he
amendments.
accepts them.
I do.
I
Then we
mean,
have discussion on the
technically,
amendment.
you should take a motion to do that, but if you both accepted your motion with those amendments, you've done it.
You have to accept the amendments. And Jessica
Right, but
has
does
to
someone
accept
else need to make the
No.
amendments? I
No,
mean,
No.
So I'm moving to amend to include.
Your motion.
My motion to include the maximum of 6 participants.
Total participants.
Total, yes, including the 3 existing already on the site, plus 3 more, and the requirement of a fence around any outdoor recreational activities.
He has
And
to
then
accept.
You have to
And I
accept
ac-
the,
yeah,
the second.
I
So
accept
just-
that second.
And now discussion on the motion
Amendment.
as amended. Any further discussion now on the amended motion?
Why not specify 3? Why not specify a total of 3 participants? Allow them to become licensed as an adult daycare to continue to provide services for their own kids, not meaningfully change the number of people or cars that are going in and out of the property, and allow them to get the oversight and licensing and potentially additional funding that will, qualify them as an agency, and so they can retire and hand off the place that's taking care of their kids, which was one of the stated goals.
Any thoughts or reactions to limiting it to a maximum of 3 participants and not 6? Total participants.
My only comment would be that I don't see it as being a significant change in the impact upon the surrounding community to go from 3 to merely 6 adults in the program.
It's going from 6 people to 12 people. It was projected or speculated that each additional client would likely have a 1-to-1 caregiver. And again, we have ideas about what we foresee happening, what we view as the intensity of the use. We should. It's our charge. The neighbors have already said what they think of the current intensity of the use, and we're talking about doubling it.
Any further discussion or reaction? All right, hearing none. All in favor of the motion as amended to continue to approve the, sorry, let me be formal about it, to approve the special exception permit application of 67 Pease Road for an adult daycare under section 3.1M of our regulations, with the conditions that there be no more than 6 total participants, including the 3 already existing, and there be a fence that surrounds any outdoor recreational activities on the property. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So it passes 4-1-1. Thank you all, and thank you for that discussion among commission members. It's appreciated. All right. Next topic on our work session, or placeholders for the upcoming public hearing on the amendment to the zoning regulations and on the Baldwin developments on Lunar Drive. They're just there.
They're just there. It has been sent off to the Council of Governments. Haven't gotten any comment back yet, because I think they're just meeting this week.
Which Andrew can give us an update on when it gets to his turn.
So, we should have comment back, for the next meeting. And I'll just keep track of any written comments that come in. I did, when you made the motion to schedule the public hearing, you also included a directive to the, for our planning consultant to comment, and a directive to the applicant to provide additional information. So I forwarded that to both those parties, so they've had it, you know, hopefully in advance enough so that they have time to prepare and submit anything that they wish to.
Great. Schedule and sort of timing wise, my guess is there'll be a lot more folks interested in the amendment to the zoning regulations than the Baldwin development. Should we?
I would think so.
Should we do
Well,
Baldwin
flip it
first?
Get them out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to sort of Aaron's and our sort of discussion on our process and whether it should be altered. I am not in favor of changing the way that I've been doing this now for a few years, but I will definitely encourage whoever replaces me at some point to consider these as options for improvement. It might be nice to, again, see if even our planner knows of best practices in that regard, whether other planning and zoning commissions have a different sort of way they handle the order of things in terms of public hearings into deliberations directly, or whether they do as we do and have them be separate. So I'd be happy to take guidance from someone who's seen how this is done elsewhere. All right. So otherwise, I'll keep using my same scripts and proceed accordingly next month. Planning, conservation, and development updates. I know we had a...
Tomorrow there's an open house.
Thank you.
It's in here. It's from 4 to 7. 3 stations based on the 3 themes, and people will be encouraged to comment, you know, because the goals, the strategies, everything will be there, so that if people want to provide a written comment right there and add in, he's going to gather that. So hopefully we'll see people.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, for efficiency's sake, I know we've offered our internal opportunity to provide comment on a draft of those materials, and instead of incorporating those, which probably needed our discussion before this open house, we've just basically given the same thing that we looked at to the open house folks, and then we're all going to gather together post open house to see what the open house folks commented on and our comments internally, and then
Yeah, he's going to gather everybody's comments together, and then you can review everything in one fell swoop, trying to be as efficient with your time and their time as possible.
Are we going to need a special meeting for that?
I don't know yet. Maybe. We'll see. One other thing to add is that he has been in contact with the first selectman, because we know we're going to be going beyond the 15th date. So there is a form that gets submitted to OPM. It's a notice of expiration of POCD. It's just to put them on alert that we're letting them know that we're running a little bit behind. And then if there's a grant that the town wishes to put in for in the interim while we haven't adopted an updated POCD, because that expiration thing would have been filed, then there's a waiver form that can go up to the state, and it gets accompanied by that. So that just needs to be in before the expiration of
When does it expire again, Chris?
May 15th.
May 15th, right? So we have to vote on it formally, right, when it's all done.
Right, but the next stage after you get this whole thing together is there's a 65-day window where it goes to the Board of Selectmen, it goes to the Councils of Governments, and everybody gets to look at it, and then at the end of the 65 days, you have a public hearing, and then you decide to go from there. So SLR believes that we would begin that 65-day period probably at the beginning of May. So we'd probably be looking at a public hearing in July. So yet
But-
another.
Yeah, but the fact that we've done a lot of work, we will be at one of these end stages
Yeah.
is enough to make sure we're in the good graces of
Yeah.
OPM. So, yeah,
So we're in good shape.
as long as they see an end is in sight, which at that point there will be.
Yeah. So if anybody can come tomorrow between 4 and 7, you're welcome to come. I'll be here, and Rob will be here with someone else, and we'll have cookies.
Fresh baked or store bought?
No, the time I get home, I'm not baking cookies.
I just asked
no.
a question. I didn't.
No, store bought.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
I
Well,
know.
why do you always raise food as an issue?
Because it's
Because
a priority in my life.
It is a priority. All right, let's move quickly. It is getting late in the hour. Any update?
Nothing
from
beyond
Squad?
the agenda and staff comments that I circulated with respect to the March meeting, at the time of the March meeting, which is much more detailed than I could ever express here.
Thank you for circulating those. Kathy, any brief updates from housing?
Yeah, briefly, the Housing Committee will be participating in Earth Day, so if you are planning on partaking in Earth Day on April 26th, we will have a table there, so please stop by. Also, I wanted to report that the Housing Committee will be having an informational session on April 30th. And that'll be at the Center Building Gym from 6 to 8. And it's, the title of the informational session at this point is Housing, Key to Sustainable Growth and Economic Prosperity. So we are also working with the Economic Community Development Commission on that as well. And it'll feature representatives from the Department of Housing, LISC, Dale Krupp, who is working with the Economic Development Commission, will be presenting, and David Morgan, who's president and CEO of Team Inc. So,
he's president of who?
what's that?
Who's he president of?
Team Inc. Oh, it's a human services agency that serves the greater area, which includes Woodbridge. So, and then Justin Fountain will be moderating the session on April 30th.
Thank you, Kathy. Chris, any quick updates as zoning enforcement officer?
No.
Okay, and we did receive some correspondence. We did receive a letter from Ben Carlson, which you all should have received in your packet. He's a member of the Conservation Commission and he sort of wanted to sort of offer their sort of services and feedback and input, which I think we are getting through our plan of conservation development process. And we obviously welcome and encourage them to participate in our various meetings, hearings, et cetera, that we have on matters before us. But it's worth taking a look at that letter for folks. But in the interest of time, I'll keep moving. We also received a letter from Melanie Bachman, the director. Oh no, we got a CC on a letter to the Siting Council Director, Melanie Bachman, about upgrades to a tower at 1990 Litchfield Turnpike. As many of you already know, the Siting Council covers and governs the cell towers, amongst other things, and their location and any updates and upgrades to them. We just get notice of them as they are upgraded or changed in Woodbridge. It went to the first selectman, and it went to us. It sounds like their AT&T is just modifying something on a monopole on Litchfield Turnpike. The last bit of correspondence was from Toll Brothers asking for release of the bond. They had presumably for one part of their,
He didn't put that in the cover letter, Mr. Chairman.
It's
Yeah.
actually a reduction in the bond. On the backside, they want to reduce it to 26,555.
Because
So
he
help
did
us-
say if
yeah.
you met the conditions of the bond, like he attached it, but in his cover letter, he didn't actually say we've done this stuff, right? I mean, he kind of,
There's, on the flip side, there's,
not mine.
I don't have a flip
oh,
side.
I thought I double-sided it.
So Mr.
We are
Mola
seeing-
didn't say, we've done this, please release us. He's like, just release.
He doesn't want to release the, I misspoke when I said release. He wants to reduce it to 26,500.
No, his letter says release. His
Well,
letter.
I clarified it with him because its proposed revised bond amount is 26,555. Because I was confused, and
It's in an email attachment. It didn't make the back of this one, but it's there.
You can't buy a car for $76,000 now.
the,
Buy an American car.
You gotta use Yugo.
Is it stick
Yeah.
shift? I missed stick shift.
We want to help them, but it just was, what I got when I read this was a little odd.
I can only tell you what he said. So it's up to
So
you
what
whether
do
you
we
want to
do?
reduce it or not.
And
I mean, if you want to carry it forward and ask for more
let's carry
I would carry
specificity.
it forward.
carry it forward for a month just because I don't think we have it in front. And
You want
why,
more specificity.
and why 26? So it's dropping 50,000 on the bond, and
Yeah.
the stormwater retention on the other side looks about the same sort of size and scale.
Yeah.
So
It's double.
it's actually larger.
It's quite
There's
large.
two of them.
Yeah, so why is the bond reducing by to a third of its
Yeah,
original?
it's not, this is not a hardship.
They can make another presentation with more
Yeah,
detail.
I can ask him to come.
Excellent. All right, approval of minutes, are we up for that?
Motion to approve minutes as presented at the dates of March 3rd, 2025 and March 10th, 2025.
Moved and seconded, any discussion on the minutes?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Okay.
Okay, Ben.
Yeah, actually, I do have a correction for the minutes. And I just wanted to ensure that one of my comments I made were accurate. And this is connection with the Stephen Mason amendment.
Which set of minutes are we dealing with?
The March 3rd.
March 3rd or March 10th?
March 3rd.
3rd, okay.
So in connection with the Stephen Mason amendment to zoning, the draft minutes currently state that Commissioner Hunter questioned if a hearing was required if an application does not have merit. And that's not what I said. I had asked whether the commission had the option to deny the application, meaning whether the commission could exercise its discretion not to accept the application. So I could give you some clarifying language for that.
Or I'll just listen and I'll just do a verbatim
Right,
from what the
right.
tape is.
Because, to clarify, I would suggest that they just add my actual comment, which is, don't we have the option to deny the application if it doesn't have merit, and probably put that immediately before the sentence stating the commission formally received the application submitted by Stephen Mason. But yeah, you could listen to the, I stamped it actually at 19 minutes, 55 seconds.
Right, so Kathy can send to Chris.
I'm gonna listen to
Did you
the,
listen to the
I'm
tape?
gonna listen to the tape and I'll do it verbatim.
Sounds good. With that change, any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, subject to that
Aye.
going
Aye.
to the tape? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions?
I abstained, I wasn't here.
One abstention. So that's minutes. Motion to adjourn.
Can I make one request? Is it possible to ask the police commission to study the traffic? I mean, So it can be somewhat responsive to some of the concerns that were presented tonight. Could we ask some part of the town to study whether traffic calming measures are warranted or otherwise study the traffic on Pease Road?
What we can do is we can tell them that we had a public hearing and that there were numerous members of the public who live on Pease Road, specifically near the intersection of Johnson and Pease, who expressed concerns about the rate of speed and whatnot,
And the blowing to the stop signs.
and blowing stop signs.
Thank you.
And then they can decide what they want to do from there, but at least we can make them aware of it.
Thank you. I will make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Well, he moved, so you
Oh,
seconded.
you moved it before.
No, I
No,
withdrew it
no,
Oh,
because
you,
he.
I hear you withdraw it. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same abstentions. Thank you, everyone, for tonight.